Mark had always considered his mornings boring. The same routine, the same quiet apartment, the same hot shower that woke him up but never made him feel alive. Today, however, would not be like any other morning. He stepped into the shower, letting the warm water wash over him. Steam filled the bathroom, making everything look blurred and soft. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the comfort of routine calm him. But then, he heard a sound. It was a tiny, high-pitched squeak, almost like a bird caught in a storm. Mark frowned. "Hello?" he called, his voice echoing strangely off the tiles. No answer, only silence. He shook his head, thinking he was imagining things, and turned back to rinse his hair. Then he saw it. Perched on the edge of his shower shelf was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was small, maybe 3 feet tall, but it glimmered in the soft steam. Its scales reflected the light like tiny shards of emerald and gold. Its eyes were enormous and golden, glowing faintly, almost as if they could see right into him. Mark froze. His heart raced. The creature tilted its head, examining him with curiosity. Its wings, delicate and translucent, fluttered slightly, sending tiny droplets of water sparkling around the room. Its tail, long and thin, flicked nervously, brushing against the glass. "What? What are you?" Mark whispered. The tiny dragon girl didn't answer with words. Instead, she blinked, stepped closer, and let out a soft chirp. She raised one clawed hand and touched the shower glass gently, as if testing him. Mark's mind raced. Aliens? Dragons? Was he dreaming? He pinched himself. Nothing changed. She was real. Instinctively, he took a step back, but the dragon girl didn't move away. Instead, she tilted her head again and gave a soft, almost human-like sigh. Mark noticed something unusual. Her eyes were expressive, full of emotions he could barely understand. Fear, curiosity, maybe both. He wanted to reach out, to touch her, but he didn't know what to expect. She might attack. She might disappear. "Hey, it's okay," Mark said, his voice trembling. "I won't hurt you." The dragon girl studied him, her eyes narrowing, then suddenly she leapt. Not aggressively, but gracefully. She landed on the bathroom floor with a soft thud. Mark's heart skipped a beat. She looked up at him and did something incredible. She spoke, but in a strange, musical voice. "Home?" Mark blinked. I don't know." "Are you lost?" The dragon girl nodded vigorously, then scampered closer. Her wings fluttered, brushing against the water droplets on the floor. She looked fragile, almost childlike, yet there was an undeniable presence of power in her small frame. Mark realized this wasn't just a random creature. She had intelligence, emotions, and maybe a story. "How did you get here?" he asked, but the dragon girl only tilted her head again, making a small whistling sound. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. He needed answers, and yet part of him was terrified to touch her, to get close. But she seemed harmless. Mark carefully crouched down to her level. "Okay, little one. You're safe here. I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon girl blinked slowly, as if understanding him. Then, without warning, she leaped onto his shoulder, her tiny claws surprisingly gentle. Her warmth spread through his skin. She rested her small head near his neck, letting out a soft hum that vibrated like music. Mark froze. Never in his life had he imagined anything like this. A tiny alien dragon girl perched on his shoulder in his bathroom. It felt impossible, unreal, and yet, here she was. Suddenly, there was a knock at the bathroom door. "Mark, everything okay?" His neighbor called. Mark jumped. The dragon girl hissed softly, her wings flaring in alarm. He whispered, "Shh, it's okay." He knew he had to think fast. If anyone saw her, questions would come. People wouldn't understand. They would panic, maybe even call authorities. But Mark couldn't just leave her here. She needed help. And he didn't even know what that meant yet. The dragon girl looked up at him with golden eyes full of trust. That was all he needed. "All right," he whispered. "Let's figure this out. Together." As he wrapped a towel around both himself and the dragon girl, she nestled closer. Mark realized something chilling and exciting at the same time. He had no idea where she came from, why she was here, or what her presence would mean. And yet, he couldn't deny one thing. His life had just changed forever. Outside, the city continued its normal, oblivious hum. But inside that small apartment, a story was beginning. A story that would challenge everything Mark thought he knew about the universe. The arrival of the tiny dragon girl was only the beginning. Something far greater, far stranger was about to unfold, and Mark was at the very center of it. Mark sat on the edge of his bed, still holding the tiny dragon girl in his arms. She was warm, almost like a living flame wrapped in scales. He studied her carefully. Her wings twitched occasionally, and her golden eyes followed him everywhere. There was intelligence there. He could feel it. He needed to know more. Where did she come from? How could she exist? Was she dangerous? And most importantly, was she alone? Hey, can you understand me? Mark asked softly. The dragon girl tilted her head and made a soft chirping sound. Then with a surprising gesture, she pointed toward the small glowing device strapped to her tiny belt. It was shaped like a crystal, humming with faint energy. Mark's heart skipped. That was no ordinary object. That's a tracker? He muttered, kneeling closer. The dragon girl nodded vigorously and made another soft sound, almost like a laugh. She touched the crystal lightly, and suddenly a small holographic map appeared in the air between them. Lines, stars, and symbols blinked and shifted, showing a path across the galaxy. Mark's jaw dropped. You're not from here. The dragon girl chirped again and pointed at her chest, then at the hologram, then back at Mark. Mark guessed she was trying to tell him something important, something he had to understand. Before he could react, she leaped from his arms and landed on the dresser. Then she did something he would never forget. She breathed a tiny puff of glowing fire into the crystal. The hologram shifted again, zooming into a planet marked with a strange, pulsing red light. Mark stared, unable to speak. You're from that planet? The dragon girl nodded slowly, her eyes wide and anxious. Mark realized something. She wasn't just lost. She was running, hiding. Suddenly a loud crash came from the kitchen. Mark jumped and the dragon girl hissed, wings flaring. He slowly moved toward the noise. There on the counter was a small device, not one he had ever seen. It blinked with red lights and emitted a low hum. He realized it was scanning the apartment. Panic shot through him. Whoever or whatever was tracking the dragon girl might be close. He turned back to her. We have to hide, he whispered. The dragon girl chirped urgently and led him toward the small storage closet. Mark opened it and stepped inside, carefully holding her. She wrapped her tiny wings around his arm, as if trusting him completely. As the closet door closed, Mark caught his breath. Okay. We need a plan. The dragon girl's eyes glowed brighter. Then she did something unexpected. She pointed at him, then at herself, and finally at her glowing crystal again. Mark realized she wanted him to help her get home, or at least protect her until she could. Mark swallowed hard. This was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. He wasn't just hiding a small alien dragon girl. He was now part of something enormous, something that could change his life, or end it. He looked at her and she blinked slowly, almost reassuringly. It was a silent promise she trusted him. And Mark? He knew he couldn't let her down. The hum of the tracker continued outside the closet door, growing louder. Whoever was searching for her was not far away. Mark's heart pounded in his chest. He had seconds to think. Listen, he whispered. We need to get out of here, now. The dragon girl chirped in agreement and leaped from his arm, landing lightly on the floor. She twirled and then darted toward the window. Mark realized she wanted to escape outside, to the roof, maybe to somewhere she could hide. He followed, careful not to make a sound. Once on the roof, the city stretched below them. Normal, busy, unaware of the tiny alien creature crouched beside him. She looked up at him with those golden eyes, and Mark felt a strange sense of wonder. We're not safe here, he said softly. Not yet. But we'll figure it out. The dragon girl chirped again, her wings spreading wide. She lifted slightly off the roof, testing the air. Her tail flicked nervously, but she seemed ready. Mark watched, amazed. He never imagined he'd see something like this in real life. A creature from another world, a being full of fire, intelligence, and mystery, trusting him completely. Suddenly, far across the city, a shadow moved. Something was watching them. The dragon girl stiffened, her wings bristling. Mark knew immediately they weren't alone. Someone or something was following her. Mark's mind raced. How could they escape? Where could they go? And most importantly, what did the Dragon Girl's presence mean for him? For humanity? One thing was certain, their story had just begun. And if they weren't careful, it could end before it truly started. Mark reached out and touched her small shoulder. "We'll face it together. No matter what comes." The Dragon Girl blinked slowly, then chirped in agreement. Together they would survive. Together they would uncover the truth. But as the shadow in the distance moved closer, Mark realized that the arrival of the tiny alien Dragon Girl was only the beginning of a far bigger secret, one that would change everything he thought he knew about life, the universe and humanity's place in it. The shadow moved faster now, slipping through the alleys and rooftops of the city like a predator hunting its prey. Mark's heart pounded in his chest. He glanced at the tiny Dragon Girl beside him. Her wings twitched nervously and her golden eyes glowed brighter in the dim light. "They're coming," he whispered. The Dragon Girl chirped sharply and leaped onto his shoulder. Her tiny claws dug into his shirt, not painfully but enough to anchor her. Mark felt a strange surge of courage. He wasn't going to let anyone take her. Not now. The first pursuer appeared on the rooftop across from them. It was humanoid but taller than any human. Its body shimmered with metallic armor, reflecting the city lights. Its eyes glowed red, scanning for the Dragon Girl. Mark swallowed hard. This wasn't something he could fight. He had no weapons, no skills, only his wits and determination. "Follow me," he whispered, and they sprinted across the roof. The Dragon Girl flapped her wings lightly, almost keeping pace with him. Her claws dug into his back as he ran, and he realized she was helping him balance. The creature raised its arm and fired a small pulse of energy. The rooftop shattered where the blast landed. Mark and the Dragon Girl dove behind an air conditioning unit, hearts hammering. Okay, think," Mark muttered. He had to find a way to lose it. The Dragon Girl chirped, then pointed to a fire escape leading down the side of the building. Mark understood immediately. He grabbed her carefully and slid down the metal stairs, his feet clanging against the rungs. Behind them, the pursuer dropped onto the roof below, its armor clanging. Mark's mind raced. He needed somewhere safe, somewhere hidden. But the city was crowded, full of humans who couldn't see the danger, but would complicate everything if they got involved. They reached the street. The Dragon Girl's wings flared slightly, helping them jump across a gap between two buildings. Mark landed hard but kept moving. The pursuer followed, leaping with unnatural speed. Mark ducked into a narrow alley, hoping to lose it. The Dragon Girl chirped, spreading a faint glow from her scales to illuminate the path ahead. The alley was tight, winding like a maze, and Mark realized this might be their best chance. But then another pursuer appeared, a smaller, faster one. It wasn't humanoid this time. Its body shimmered like liquid metal, morphing constantly. It hissed at them, moving with terrifying speed. Mark froze for a second, and the Dragon Girl chirped angrily. She flapped her wings, generating a small gust of wind that knocked the creature back. "Wow, you're amazing," Mark whispered, awe in his voice. The Dragon Girl didn't answer with words. She only blinked at him, as if telling him to stay focused. Mark realized something crucial. They couldn't outrun them forever. They needed a plan, a safe place, somewhere no one would think to look. He spotted an old abandoned warehouse nearby. Its doors were rusted and heavy, but it would hide them. "This way!" he shouted, and they ran toward it. The pursuers hesitated at the edge of the street, scanning for movement. One of them hissed and surged forward, but by then Mark and the Dragon Girl were inside the warehouse. The heavy doors slammed shut behind them. Inside it was dark and musty. Dust floated in the air, illuminated only by the faint glow from the Dragon Girl's scales. She chirped softly, perching on a metal beam, and Mark felt a mix of relief and fear. They had escaped for now, but he knew it wouldn't last. "They're not giving up," he whispered. "And I don't even know who they are, or what they want." The Dragon Girl tilted her head, then touched her glowing crystal. The holographic map appeared again, showing a different location. Something closer, something important. Mark studied it. "You want to go there?" "Huh, okay, we'll go. But we have to be smart. We can't just run blindly." She chirped again, almost in agreement, and fluttered down to his shoulder. Her warmth was comforting, but Mark felt the weight of responsibility. Protecting her wasn't just about hiding her. It was about survival. about uncovering the secret that brought her to Earth in the first place. Outside, the city hummed normally. No one noticed the tiny alien dragon girl hiding in an abandoned warehouse with a human who had just met her. But Mark knew better. Danger was coming. Danger was close. And as he looked at her glowing eyes, he realized the truth. Their journey had just begun. The chase was far from over, and the secrets the dragon girl carried would change everything. Mark and the tiny dragon girl huddled in the abandoned warehouse, the glow from her scales casting strange shadows across the walls. Outside, the city went on as usual, oblivious to the alien presence hiding in its midst. Mark studied her carefully. She was quiet now, but he could sense the tension in her small frame. Something had changed. She wasn't just lost or scared anymore. There was something she was holding back, something important. "All right," Mark said softly. "I need to understand. Who are you? Where did you come from? And why are they chasing you?" The dragon girl blinked slowly, then pointed to her crystal. The holographic map appeared again, this time more detailed. Symbols, lines, and lights filled the air, forming a pattern Mark barely recognized. But at the center of it was a planet, bright, pulsing, alive. She chirped, then placed her claw over the pulsing light. Mark realized she was trying to tell him something about her home. Something urgent. He leaned closer. You're not just visiting Earth. You're running from something, someone. And this planet, it's your home?" The dragon girl nodded. Then, in a gesture that stunned him, she touched her forehead with her tiny claws. The glow from her crystal intensified, and suddenly Mark's mind was flooded with images, memories, visions, emotions. He saw a world filled with enormous mountains, glowing forests, and rivers of molten crystal. Flying creatures soared across the skies, their wings shimmering like hers. He saw cities suspended in the clouds, bustling with alien life. And then, he saw fire, explosions, and creatures in armor descending upon her world. Mark stumbled backward, his mind reeling. Your world is under attack?" The dragon girl chirped sadly, nodding. She reached out and touched his hand, transmitting a strange, calming warmth. It was almost as if she wanted him to understand. She had no choice but to leave. Earth was the only place she could hide. Mark felt a surge of determination. He couldn't just sit here. He had to help her. Protect her, even if he didn't fully understand the danger yet. "Okay," he said, voice firm. "We'll figure this out. We'll keep you safe. But we need a plan, and we need to know what we're up against." The dragon girl chirped again, then tapped her crystal. This time, the map zoomed in on a small sector of Earth, far from the city, a secluded area surrounded by mountains and forests. She chirped urgently, clearly indicating that this was where they should go next. Mark nodded. "A safe place. All right, we'll go there. But first we need supplies. We can't survive in the wild without food or shelter." She chirped once more, as if agreeing. Then, in a surprising move, she hopped onto his shoulder and whispered, a sound so soft he barely heard it, something he couldn't understand, but felt in his mind. "Trust me." Mark felt a shiver run down his spine. He didn't fully understand her words, but he knew one thing. She wasn't just a helpless alien. She was smart, brave, and perhaps more powerful than he could imagine. He glanced around the warehouse, thinking about the pursuers outside. Whoever they were, they hadn't given up. They were still tracking her, still hunting. And now Mark understood that hiding wasn't enough. They needed a way to fight back, or at least stay ahead. He looked at her glowing eyes and made a decision. "We leave tonight. We move fast and we don't stop until we reach your safe place. I don't care what comes after us. We survive. Together." The dragon girl chirped softly, leaning against him. Mark felt her tiny claws grip his shirt, and for the first time he felt the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just an adventure anymore. This was life and death, and as they prepared to leave the warehouse, a chill ran down his spine. He had no idea what waited for them outside. But he knew one thing for certain. The hidden truth about her world and the danger she carried was far bigger than he could imagine. The chase was far from over, and the secret she carried would change everything he thought he knew about life, the universe, and humanity's place in it. Night had fallen over the city. The streets were quiet. shadows stretching across buildings. Mark and the tiny dragon girl slipped out of the warehouse, careful not to be seen. The glow from her scales illuminated their path like a soft lantern, but it was subtle enough to avoid attention. Mark kept checking behind them. The pursuers hadn't given up. He could feel it. They were close, moving like silent hunters through the darkness. "Stay close," Mark whispered. "We can't let them catch us now." The dragon girl chirped softly, flapping her wings in agreement. She leapt from his shoulder and hovered briefly, scanning the streets ahead. Then she darted forward, her small size allowing her to navigate obstacles quickly. Mark followed, weaving through alleys and abandoned buildings. Every few minutes a shadow would pass nearby, a sign that someone was still tracking them. Mark's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. Panic would only slow them down. They reached the outskirts of the city, where the tall buildings gave way to open land and forests. The dragon girl landed on a rock, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. She chirped, pointing toward the mountains in the distance. "That's our destination," Mark said, nodding. "We'll make it there." "We have to." The journey was dangerous. The terrain was uneven, and they had to cross rivers, climb rocky hills, and move quietly to avoid detection. The dragon girl's wings helped sometimes, lifting them over obstacles, but Mark had to be careful. He didn't want to fall or alert anyone tracking them. As they walked, Mark realized just how unusual their situation was. Here he was, an ordinary human, guiding a tiny alien dragon girl through unfamiliar territory, all while being hunted by unknown enemies. The thought was terrifying, but he also felt a strange thrill. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just existing. He was part of something extraordinary. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the forest. Branches snapped and leaves rustled violently. Mark froze, pulling the dragon girl close. "Hide!" she chirped urgently. They crouched behind a large boulder, barely breathing. From the shadows emerged a figure, another pursuer, but different this time. It moved faster than the others, its metallic body gleaming even in the dim moonlight. Its eyes glowed red, scanning for any sign of the dragon girl. Mark's heart raced. He had to think fast. The dragon girl whispered a faint musical sound, and a small pulse of energy shot from her crystal, temporarily blinding the pursuer. It stumbled and hissed, giving them a chance to escape. "Run!" Mark shouted. They sprinted through the forest, leaping over roots and fallen logs. The dragon girl flew above him, her wings flapping rapidly to guide him through the safest path. Hours passed. The city was far behind them, replaced by endless forest and rugged mountains. The dragon girl chirped occasionally, seemingly encouraging Mark to keep going. Despite his exhaustion, he pushed forward. He couldn't let her down. Finally, they reached the edge of a high cliff. From here, the dragon girl's crystal glowed brighter, projecting a holographic map of the area. It showed a hidden valley, surrounded by mountains protected from any pursuer's view. "That's it," Mark whispered. "That's your safe place." The dragon girl chirped excitedly and flapped her wings, lifting herself slightly into the air. She hovered beside him, scanning the valley below. Mark could see it too. Lush forests, sparkling rivers, and a sense of peace unlike anything he had experienced. But as relief washed over him, Mark noticed something chilling. In the distance on the horizon, tiny red lights moved toward them, another sign that the pursuers had tracked them this far. "We're not safe yet," he said, gripping her small shoulder. "We have to descend carefully." The dragon girl nodded, her wings spreading to shield him as they slowly made their way down the cliff. Every step was cautious, every movement calculated. The valley was close, but danger was still following them. As they reached the forested edge of the valley, Mark realized something. The dragon girl's safe place wasn't just a hiding spot. It was a new world, a place where she could begin to reveal the secrets of her past, her abilities, and the true reason she had come to Earth. And Mark, he knew he wasn't just a protector. He was part of her story now, entwined in a journey that would take them far beyond anything he had ever imagined. The forest swallowed them, the lights of the pursuers fading behind the mountains. For now they were safe, but Mark knew that the next challenge was coming. The dragon girl's enemies wouldn't give up easily, and the hidden truth of her world was waiting to be uncovered. Their journey had only just begun. The valley was quiet, almost too quiet. Mark and the tiny dragon girl moved cautiously through the dense forest, her glowing scales lighting their path like a living lantern. The air smelled of damp earth and wildflowers, a strange peace after the chaos of the city. Mark couldn't help but glance at her. She was small, fragile-looking, but every movement radiated intelligence and power. He had never met anything like her before. Every step they took, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He wasn't just keeping her safe. He was carrying a secret that could change everything. They reached a clearing and the dragon girl chirped softly. She hopped off his shoulder and ran toward a large stone pedestal partially covered in vines. Mark followed, curious. When the dragon girl touched the pedestal, the crystal on her belt flared, and a beam of light shot into the air. Suddenly, the forest around them seemed to shift. Holographic images appeared, projected from her crystal, showing her home planet. Cities, forests, skies filled with alien creatures. It was a breathtaking sight. But then Mark saw something horrifying. Fire, destruction, armored creatures sweeping across the cities, capturing or destroying everything in sight. The dragon girl's family, her friends, her entire world was under siege. Mark staggered backward. This is why you came here. You escaped, didn't you? The dragon girl chirped, flapping her wings rapidly. She touched her forehead with her claws again, sending more visions into Mark's mind. He saw her as a child, learning to fly, learning to breathe fire, learning the ways of her people. Then the attack came, sudden and violent. Her world burned, and she fled, one of the few survivors. Tears welled up in Mark's eyes. He had never felt so powerless and determined at the same time. This tiny creature, barely 3 feet tall, had survived something he couldn't even imagine. And now, her survival depended on him. She's amazing, Mark whispered, and she trusted me. The dragon girl chirped softly, leaning against his arm. She looked tired, but there was a spark in her eyes, a determination, a promise that she wasn't done fighting. Mark studied the map again. The hologram showed a series of energy nodes scattered across the galaxy. They pulsed in sequence like beacons. The dragon girl chirped and pointed to one of the nodes. It was different from the others, larger, brighter, almost alive. That's it, isn't it? Mark asked. That's why they're chasing you? She chirped, then spread her wings wide, showing for the first time a subtle, iridescent pattern glowing along them. It was beautiful, almost hypnotic. And Mark realized it wasn't just for show. This was power, energy, something she could use to protect herself or to fight back. Mark felt a thrill of fear and excitement. He had a feeling that if they could reach that node, they might finally understand her true strength, and maybe even turn the tables on her pursuers. But danger was still near. From the forest's edge, a faint red glow flickered. The pursuers had tracked them into the valley. Mark's heart raced. We have to prepare, he whispered. You have power, but we can't underestimate them. They're not just ordinary enemies. The dragon girl chirped in agreement and tapped her crystal. The holographic map projected a protective barrier around the clearing. Mark watched in awe as vines and energy patterns intertwined, forming a shield. You're not just hiding, he said, astonished. You're ready to fight? She chirped again, eyes glowing golden. Mark realized the truth. This tiny dragon girl was not helpless. She was a survivor, a warrior, and a beacon of hope. Her journey on Earth was more than just escape. It was preparation for something greater, something that could change the fate of her world, and perhaps even humanity. Mark clenched his fists. Then we do this together. No matter what comes, we fight. We survive. We protect your secret. The dragon girl chirped in agreement, perching on his shoulder and wrapping her tiny wings around him. Mark could feel her strength merging with his resolve. Together, they were no longer just human and alien. They were a team, ready to face the storm that was approaching. And from the distant shadows, the red glow of the pursuers advanced, closer than ever. The revelation had come. The fight was about to begin. The red glow of the pursuers grew brighter as they advanced through the forest, moving like shadows with purpose. Mark tightened his grip on the tiny dragon girl. Her wings spread wide, glowing softly in the moonlight, ready for whatever was coming. This is it, Mark whispered. We stand our ground here together. The dragon girl chirped sharply, almost like a battle cry. Then she leapt onto a nearby boulder, her crystal glowing intensely. The air around them shimmered, as if responding to her energy. Mark realized she wasn't just preparing to defend herself. She was ready to fight. The first pursuer appeared from the trees, its metallic body gleaming red. It moved with precision, scanning for the dragon girl. Mark's heart raced, but he stayed calm. He knew they had a plan. Trust the dragon girl, follow her lead, survive. Suddenly, she breathed a small jet of glowing fire, more controlled and powerful than he had seen before. The pursuer stumbled back, sparks flying off its armor. Mark was amazed. She wasn't just small and cute. She was strong, intelligent, and dangerous when needed. Another pursuer emerged, faster, larger, more menacing. Mark stepped in front of the dragon girl instinctively. "Not today," he said, feeling courage he didn't know he had. The dragon girl chirped and circled him, creating a protective barrier with her wings. Her crystal flared, sending pulses of energy that distorted the ground around them. The pursuers hesitated, clearly confused by the unexpected defense. Mark realized something incredible. She was not just hiding anymore. She was commanding power beyond his imagination. He felt a surge of hope. They might actually survive this. The pursuers regrouped, attacking together. But the dragon girl moved with speed and precision, dodging, leaping, and striking with controlled bursts of fire and energy from her crystal. Mark helped where he could, throwing debris and distracting them. But it was her fight. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. The forest shook with the energy blasts and the sound of impact. Yet the dragon girl didn't falter. Her eyes glowed brighter with every move, and Mark felt her determination merge with his own. Finally, she faced the largest pursuer, the one who had been leading them all. She let out a long, musical chirp, and her wings flared fully, sending a massive wave of energy toward the enemy. The pursuer screamed and staggered, then vanished in a burst of light. Mark could hardly believe his eyes. The battle was over. The remaining pursuers retreated into the shadows, leaving the forest in silence. Mark fell to his knees, exhausted but exhilarated. The dragon girl landed gently on his shoulder, curling her small body against him. She chirped softly, a sound that felt like relief and gratitude. You're incredible," Mark whispered. "I don't know what I would have done without you." The dragon girl blinked, her eyes warm and golden, then pointed to the valley ahead, the hidden place they had been traveling toward. It was safe now. For the first time since she had arrived on Earth, she could rest. Mark looked at the valley, then back at her. "We made it," he said softly. "Together." For a moment, they simply stood there. The danger was gone, the night calm, and the forest seemed to breathe with peace. But Mark knew their journey wasn't over. The galaxy was vast, the threats countless, and her world, her people, still needed help. Yet in that moment, nothing else mattered. He had met something extraordinary. He had seen courage, intelligence, and power in the smallest form imaginable. He had become part of a story far bigger than himself, and the tiny dragon girl? She had found a human she could trust, a companion to face the unknown. Together they looked out over the valley, the first light of dawn painting the skies. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. Mark smiled, feeling hope and awe like never before. Humanity, he realized, was capable of more than he had ever imagined. And perhaps, together with beings like her, they could rise to face anything. The tiny alien dragon girl chirped softly, nestling into his shoulder. Her golden eyes sparkled with unspoken promise. The adventure had ended for now, but their story, their bond, and the secrets of her world were only just beginning.